Welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be taking a closer look at Filatex India Ltd.
Oh, yeah. Definitely a big player in the synthetic yarn business globally.
Absolutely. And we've got a ton of interesting stuff to go through today.
Really seems like they released the whole shebang.
Yeah, we've got like their company announcement to the exchanges.
The National Stock Exchange of India Limited and the BSE Limited.
Right. And then, of course, we've got all the detailed financials, a whole investor presentation, and even a message from the CMD himself.
Wow. So really getting the full picture here.
Exactly. And by the end of this, you'll not only understand Filatex's performance, but also get a sense of, the bigger trends going on in the whole synthetic fiber industry.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how Filatex's story kind of like reflects those bigger shifts happening in textiles right now, from natural to synthetic fibers and all the emphasis on recycling and circularity.
For sure. So to kick things off, let's start with that official announcement that Filatex put out on November 12th. It's addressed to those exchanges, like I mentioned, and it's basically confirming that they've, released the unaudited financial results
Right.
for both Q2 and the half year that ended September 30th, 2024.
Okay.
And this is for both the standalone and consolidated statements.
Mm-hmm.
So standalone obviously refers to just Filatex's own numbers.
Right.
But the consolidated ones include all their subsidiary.
Yeah, paints a picture of the whole group.
Exactly.
And they also mentioned that the full reports are available and that their auditors have done like a limited review.
What does that mean exactly?
So it basically means the auditors have, done kind of a preliminary check of the numbers rather than like a full-blown audit, the deep dive.
Yeah.
So it gives stakeholders some assurance about the financial data, but, we're still waiting for that like complete audited report.
Got it. So let's move past the formalities and actually see what these results mean. Starting with revenue, we see a slight year-over-year decrease for both Q2 and the half year, comparing, fiscal 25 to fiscal 24.
And the earnings release actually gives us like specific numbers.
Oh, perfect.
So Filatex brought in 1,049 crore INR in revenue for Q2 of fiscal 25.
Okay.
Compared to 1,108 crore in the same quarter last year.
Okay, so a noticeable dip.
Yeah.
And while revenue is down, the profitability story is a little bit more complex.
Yeah, definitely.
To understand that, we need to look at EBITDA,
Right.
which, what does that even stand for again?
So EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
Right.
And essentially, it shows how much profit a company makes just from its core operations.
Okay.
Before, taking into account things like financing costs and taxes.
Got it. So for Q2, there was a year-over-year decrease in EBITDA, which makes sense considering the revenue dip. But get this, for the half year, their EBITDA actually increased slightly.
Interesting. So, like, despite the revenue trend, for the first 6 months, their overall operational profitability actually went up.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting.
But if we look a bit deeper, really dig in, we see a pretty significant jump in finance costs.
Oh, really? How much are we talking?
Over 250% quarter over quarter.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, so that could be due to, a lot of things. Maybe they took on new loans for expansion.
Right.
Or maybe rising interest rates are hitting their debt obligations.
Okay, so something to definitely keep an eye on.
Definitely something to look into more later.
Okay, but for now, let's shift gears and focus on production and sales figures.
Sounds good.
Do those offer any more insights into this whole picture?
Well, the investor presentation has some good data on that.
Perfect.
So in Q2 of fiscal 25, Filatex produced 94,993 metric tons of yarn.
Okay.
And they sold 96,255 metric tons.
All right, and how do those figures compare to last year?
So comparing them year over year, we see a pretty clear decline.
And why do you think that is?
Well, the investor presentation actually gives us some context here.
Okay, good.
They mentioned power disruptions and a planned maintenance shutdown of one of their units during Q2.
So that probably impacted production.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it wasn't necessarily weak demand.
Right.
Just these temporary setbacks.
Okay, so that's important to keep in mind.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, though, how vulnerable are they to this kind of disruption, especially as they grow?
Yeah, definitely something to consider.
We'll dig into that a bit later.
Okay, well, before we do that, let's hear from the man in charge.
Okay.
So, Mr. Madhu Sudhan Bagaria, the CMD of Filatex.
Right.
He shares his thoughts in the earnings release, and, he acknowledges the kind of subdued demand in July and August. But he points to a market turnaround starting in October.
Oh, wow.
He even says, and I quote, "We believe the worst is now behind us."
That's pretty confident.
It is, considering the challenges they faced.
Yeah, to really understand his optimism, we need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, good point.
So the investor presentation has this really interesting chart showing world fiber production from 2008 to 2023.
Okay.
And what's striking is the massive shift globally from natural fibers to synthetics,
Oh, wow.
especially polyester.
So Filatex is operating in a sector that's actually experiencing significant growth.
Exactly, despite those temporary bumps.
Yeah. So no wonder Mr. Big Eary is feeling positive.
Right, and the presentation even highlights that polyester dominated the market with a 57% share of global fiber production in 2023.
Wow, so it's the leading player.
Yeah, and for good reason. I mean, it's durable, it dries quickly, it's easy to clean.
Yeah, and it's also in like all the activewear, which is a huge market right now.
Exactly, and this is where India's potential comes in.
Oh, how so?
Well, the presentation points out that India's per capita fiber consumption is way lower than the global average.
Oh, interesting. So there's a lot of room for growth,
Huge potential, yeah.
especially as India's economy grows and, living standards rise.
Mm-hmm. And this presents a massive opportunity for Filatex.
Yeah, and it's not just about market dynamics. The Indian government is really encouraging the manufacturing of man-made fibers through a bunch of initiatives.
Right, like the Production Linked Incentive Scheme or PLI scheme.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so it provides financial incentives to boost domestic manufacturing.
For specific products like man-made fibers.
Exactly. And they also mentioned the development of mega textile parks, which will provide dedicated infrastructure and resources for textile manufacturers.
Wow, so the government's really trying to make India a global hub for textile production.
Yeah, for sure. And Filatex is in a prime position to benefit.
So it's all coming together now.
Yeah.
Even though Filatex had a tough Q2, they're clearly anticipating a rebound, and the underlying trends in the industry and these government initiatives seem to support that.
Absolutely. And they're not just sitting back and letting it happen either.
Right, they're taking action.
Exactly. They're really focusing on sustainability, which is becoming more and more important for consumers and investors.
Okay, so tell me more about that. What are they doing specifically on that front?
Well, the investor presentation dives into some of their initiatives.
Okay, good.
So for renewable energy, they're reducing their reliance on fossil fuels by sourcing power from rooftop solar plants at their factories, a hybrid wind solar plant in Gujarat, and even a solar plant in Rajasthan.
Wow, so they're really diversifying their energy sources.
Yeah, and for textile recycling, they developed this technology called Ecosis.
What is that?
It allows them to do textile-to-textile recycling.
Wow, so they can take old textiles and turn them into new yarn.
Exactly. High-quality polyester yarn.
So they're creating like a closed-loop system where textiles don't end up in landfills?
Exactly. It's a fantastic example of the circular economy in action.
That's incredible, and it aligns perfectly with what consumers are demanding these days.
Right. Sustainability is a huge factor.
And they're not just, part of the trend, they're actually shaping it.
Exactly. And their commitment goes beyond just operations, too.
Oh, really? What else are they doing?
They're really involved in community empowerment initiatives.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the investor presentation mentions their work in education and healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And they even use a composite food waste machine to turn their canteen waste into fertilizer for their green spaces.
Oh, wow. So they're really walking the walk.
Definitely. It shows their commitment to sustainability in a very tangible way.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Filatex's Q2 results, their strategic focus, the wider trends in the synthetic fiber industry. It's a lot to take in.
It is.
What does all of this actually mean for you, the listener?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
So let's try to sum up the key takeaways.
Okay.
First, Filatex had a difficult Q2, mainly due to external factors impacting production.
Right.
But they're optimistic about the future, and their optimism is based on the overall growth of the synthetic fiber industry and their strategic initiatives.
Exactly. They're riding that wave of growing demand for synthetic fibers, especially polyester, and they're doing it with a focus on sustainability.
Right, investing in renewable energy, textile recycling, and community empowerment.
Yeah, they're not just talking the talk.
Right, they're walking the walk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But as with any company, there are external factors that could, influence their success.
Right, like what if the market doesn't rebound as they're expecting?
Exactly. Or what about those power disruptions they mentioned?
Yeah, as they increase their capacity, reliable infrastructure will be even more important.
Definitely something to consider.
So it seems like Filatex is on a strong path, but we have to acknowledge the potential challenges they might face.
Absolutely. This deep dive has really shown us that we can't just rely on, financial statements and press releases to fully understand a company.
Right. We need to consider the context, the trends, the risks, and of course the people behind the numbers.
Exactly. That's what makes these deep dives so fascinating.
It's like putting together a puzzle,
It is.
uncovering the story behind a company's journey.
So what stands out to you as the most interesting part of Filatex's story so far?
Honestly, it's that mix of ambition and values. They want to grow, but they want to do it sustainably and ethically.
Yeah, that's a powerful combination. But can they maintain that balance as they grow?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is. And it's not just relevant to Filatex either.
Right. Any company that wants to thrive today needs to figure that out.
This deep dive into Filatex has given us so much to think about.
It has. It's shown us the challenges and opportunities that businesses face in the 21st century.
And all those choices companies make, the innovations they pursue, the values they uphold, they all have these ripple effects that go way beyond their bottom line.
So while we've reached the end of this part of our deep dive into Filatex, the conversation doesn't have to stop here.
Exactly. Keep questioning, keep learning, and you'll be amazed by what you find.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
It's amazing how Filatex is handling these short-term problems while also setting themselves up for success in the long run.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's dig into that strategic vision.
Okay.
We talked about sustainability, but what are they specifically focusing on for growth? What's going to drive them forward in the coming years?
Well, the investor presentation actually lays out some pretty clear growth drivers.
Okay, good.
First, they're riding that wave of the global shift towards synthetic fibers like we discussed earlier. And that trend is only going to continue, especially as polyester, becomes even more versatile.
So it's not just about making more yarn, it's about making the right kind of yarn.
Exactly, catering to specific needs.
From clothing to home, textiles, even industrial stuff.
Yeah, polyester is everywhere.
It really is.
And it seems like Filatex is diversifying their products to meet those needs.
Okay, how so?
They're producing everything from polyester chips,
The raw materials?
yeah, to different types of yarn.
Oh, wow, like what kind?
They're making partially oriented yarn,
POY.
yeah, which is known for its strength and elasticity, good for textiles.
Okay.
Then there's fully drawn yarn, or FDY.
Mm-hmm.
It has a smooth finish, so it's perfect for things like sewing thread.
Got it.
And then there's drawn textured yarn, DTY, which is great for creating those textured fabrics with a softer feel.
Wow, so they're covering all their bases.
It seems like it.
But in such a dynamic and global market, how do they stay competitive?
Well, their integrated business model is a key factor here.
What do you mean by that?
They have manufacturing units that handle the entire production process.
Oh, wow, from raw materials all the way to the finished yarn.
Yeah, exactly.
So that gives them a lot of control.
Yeah, over costs, quality, and it allows them to react quickly to market changes.
So they're less vulnerable to those external disruptions.
Exactly, and more adaptable to what customers want.
It makes a lot of sense.
But it's not just about efficiency, they're also focused on innovation.
Right, like that ecosys technology.
Yeah, exactly. It's a perfect example of how they're pushing the boundaries in textile recycling.
And it goes beyond just recycling, too.
Oh yeah, how so?
They're planning to increase their overall manufacturing capacity
Really? By how much?
to 401,040 metric tons annually.
Wow, that's ambitious.
It is, but it suggests they're anticipating major growth in demand.
Yeah, it aligns with their overall growth strategy.
And they're expanding both domestically and internationally.
Mm-hmm. The presentation highlights their presence in over 45 countries across 5 continents.
So they're truly a global company. Something's been on my mind during this deep dive.
What's that?
We've talked about their financials, their growth, their commitment to sustainability.
Right.
But what about the people?
The people behind it all.
Yeah. What's the culture like at Filatex?
That's a good question.
A company is only as good as its people.
It's true. We often get caught up in the numbers,
Yeah,
but there's a human side to every story.
exactly. So what can we learn about Filatex's approach to its workforce? Its role in the community.
Well, the presentation does emphasize their commitment to ethical governance and responsible corporate citizenship. They have a robust risk management framework, clear roles and responsibilities for their board committees, and a strong emphasis on transparency.
So they're not just chasing profits.
No, they're dedicated to building a sustainable and ethical business.
That's great to hear.
And it's becoming increasingly important for investors and consumers.
For sure. And it goes beyond just corporate governance. They highlight their efforts in empowering communities, supporting social initiatives focused on education and healthcare.
It's encouraging to see a company that prioritizes not just its shareholders, but also its employees and the communities it operates in.
Absolutely. It shows a commitment to social responsibility.
Yeah, and giving back.
It's part of a larger trend where companies are realizing that their success depends on the well-being of everyone involved.
Right, not just their bottom line.
It's about creating a positive impact on the world.
Exactly.
But let's be realistic, no company operates in a vacuum.
Sure.
There are always external factors that can come into play.
Yeah, both good and bad.
So what are some of those potential risks for Filatex?
Well, for one, their business relies heavily on global trade.
Right.
Any disruption to global supply chains, political instability, economic downturns, those could all impact their operations.
And those power disruptions they mentioned.
Yeah, those highlight how important reliable infrastructure is for their manufacturing, especially as they scale up
Exactly.
and as they expand, especially into new markets. They'll have to navigate different regulations, cultural differences, even currency fluctuations.
It's a lot to handle.
It is, but it seems like Filatex is well equipped.
Yeah, but we have to acknowledge those potential challenges.
This deep dive has really shown us that we need to look beyond this surface level. You
Absolutely.
can't just rely on financial statements and press releases.
We need to consider the context, the trends, the risks, the people.
Exactly. That's what makes these deep dives so interesting.
It's like uncovering all the layers of a story.
So what stands out to you as the most intriguing aspect of Filatex's story so far?
For me, it's that balance of ambition and values.
Yeah,
They want to grow significantly, but they want to do it sustainably and ethically.
that's impressive. But can they maintain that balance as they grow?
That's the big question.
It is, and it's a question a lot of companies are facing today.
This deep dive into Filatex has really given us a lot to think about.
It has. We've seen the challenges and opportunities that businesses face today.
And the choices they make, the innovations, the values they uphold, they all have consequences.
Consequences that reach far beyond just their financial performance.
So even though we've reached the end of this part of our deep dive, the conversation doesn't end here.
Absolutely not.
Keep learning, keep questioning, and you'll discover amazing things.
I totally agree.
You know, it's interesting as we've been going through all this stuff about Filatex, I can't help but notice how much their story mirrors these bigger trends happening in the global economy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That connection between a company's journey and those forces shaping industries. That's what makes these deep dives so valuable. We can zoom in on Filatex, but also understand those big picture dynamics.
For Filatex, that context is super dynamic right now.
For sure.
We've got, geopolitical shifts, tech advancements, changing consumer preferences, and of course, climate change. It's a lot to deal with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Filatex's commitment to sustainability suggests they're not just reacting to these trends.
Right.
They're actively trying to shape them.
Yeah, with renewable energy, textile to textile recycling, community empowerment, it seems like they really envision a more sustainable and equitable future.
It's definitely inspiring to see.
Yeah.
But it makes you wonder, can this kind of purpose-driven business model really scale?
Yeah. Can they be profitable and make a positive impact?
That's the question so many businesses are facing these days.
Right. The old model of just maximizing profits, that's not enough anymore.
Consumers and investors want more.
They want companies to contribute to a better world.
Exactly. And that shift creates both challenges and opportunities.
So for Filatex, it's a chance to stand out, attract talent, build those relationships.
For sure. But it doesn't guarantee success.
Right. They still need to navigate the market and adapt to change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But their journey offers some valuable lessons for any business leader trying to figure things out.
Okay, so let's break it down. What can other companies learn from Filatex?
First, the importance of a long-term vision. They're not just focused on quarterly profits. They're thinking about the next decade. Making decisions today to be successful in a future where sustainability and social responsibility are just the norm.
It's about playing the long game.
Exactly.
Oh.
Second, the power of integration.
Right, their vertically integrated model.
It gives them control over their supply chain so they can respond quickly and maintain quality.
Agility is key.
Absolutely. And third, the courage to innovate.
With things like Ecosis.
Exactly. They're pushing boundaries, investing in new tech to stay ahead of the curve.
It's about being a leader, not a follower.
Precisely. And finally, the importance of values.
Right. Ethical governance, community empowerment.
It shows that businesses can be profitable and purpose-driven.
It's not either.
It's about finding that sweet spot where business success and positive impact come together.
Filatex is proof that it's possible.
It really is.
Well, I think we've really covered a lot today.
We have.
We analyzed their results, their growth drivers, their sustainability initiatives.
and even reflected on the bigger picture for the business world.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final question.
Okay.
If you were leading Filatex, what would be your top priority for the next year?
Ooh, that's a good one.
What move would you make to ensure their success in this crazy world?
We've given you the info, the insights, the context. Now it's your turn.
Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and see what you discover.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Filatex India Ltd.
Thanks for joining us.
We hope you learned something new, and until next time, keep diving deep.